Now we are skipping the intro today because with what I gotta address, well, I just can't wait to call this out. And what I will say before we go into this is that now, as I have made it to the center of the OVO Drake-A-Wish town halls, and they really have never been more mad at me and the very takes that I am talking about now, gotta ask, make sure to leave a like and subscribe because I am serious when I say this. We are really going to need it. And so let's just get into this, which we are going to start off with a little story today, which all started when I woke up this morning and I had what I am going to call my own whacked out murals moment. And what I do mean by that is that now I opened up my timeline and I saw some trash from a Drake stan complaining, and I clicked on it. And well, not just any Drake stan, but really one of the leaders and figureheads of the biggest Drake stan groups took one of the recent clips from these very videos where I was talking about Kendrick Lamar and some of the stuff that I have noticed about his current leg of his tour and how it's being covered by hip-hop media. And well, they sped it up, messed it up, and tried to push lies on Kendrick Lamar. And well, with what I was saying and how they framed it, lies on me. And listen, I'm not gonna go any further into the disses and reactions and everything they said because honestly, who cares? But the point of what we need to address here and where this goes deeper is, well, what I am gonna say from one fan base to another. And what I am about to say, and just be ready for this is, well, is that I'm sorry, but not like that and not for the reasons you think, because all you Icemen are going out sad and melting together for your single Iceman. But really what I should say is I am sorry for you, because you know when you sit there and realize why you and your sad and desperate groups of stans have resorted to speeding up my voice to try and diss me, Kendrick Lamar, and hip-hop as a whole, I guess. Well, you know what they say, the best way to try and distract people from the truth is to try and alter it and do anything you can to try and detract what the messenger is saying. And the whole point of what I'm really trying to get at now is I am sorry for these guys. And you know why? Because when you really think about the Drake stan base turning into the biggest pack of losers that you could ever have, it hasn't been 30 days, 365 days, 519 days, but it's actually now been 2 years to the very date that we are talking on today that marked the last time the losers was in control, like they were in the lead, and they could act like they held up the most mid from the mid section of the mid factory. And then again, act like what your favorite was putting out was Illmatic. And what I am talking about here for the OVO people who keep dissing me, you may want to make this your moment, is how it's been 2 years since your guy Drake and you as fans had your last #1 everything in For All the Dogs. And honestly, when we go back to this very album era and all of the moments that Drake made within it, if we want to break down what the thing that your entire community is now nostalgic about and wishes they could go back to, this thing is not just a garbage album that has some of the worst music you could ever hear from somebody who was deemed a high-level performer in rap. But, and I really don't want to be this honest with all of you, For All the Dogs is the most arrogant and delusional body of work and performance that I have ever heard. And from anyone who has been considered to be near the top of anything ever at that. Because genuinely, if we want to look at where everything went wrong for Drake and how he got to the point he is at today, where he is the Cupcake Karen, Ice Spice, Strawberry Sue Man, all we have to do is look no further than this very project, because in the entire history of hip-hop and in the entire history of anything, nobody who's been at #1 has simultaneously made something that was supposed to hold up their status this bad, and also this disrespectful to the very art form and culture that they were trying to pose themselves as the very center and franchise player of. And with that, for the OVO stans who don't know what a law of power is and who keep trying to blame everyone for everything, including me now, I just want to remind you of what you had and how bad you messed it up. Which all did come down to Drake with braids looking like a clown and just sending the message to everyone that this rap thing has become a joke to him and that he's not interested in making classics or doing anything that the best rappers ever wanted to, and instead now he's chasing viral memes and 7-second moments for trends more than anything that can change lives and leave a long-lasting impression. And really for Drake, when we break down this entire album and look at all of the details about him, while the Drake fans can sit here and pretend like they enjoyed the trash songs and think the album is okay, that does not even matter, because to have an album that is this bad, yet it is trying to diss as many people and step on as many toes as it did, Well, that was just never going to end well, and when you see the reality that it caused, which let's remember it was the very precedent that this project set in hip-hop, and that Drake's performance just tried to really set across, that did cause not just Kendrick Lamar to turn on Drake and hop on a record like that, but it also caused Future and Metro Boomin to turn on him and make We Don't Trust You as a whole. And really, beyond the songs and details that we all know and sadly remember, or I guess not, because this thing is so forgettable, how could you even think about half of it in the Big 25? When we just look at this record and what it really represented for a second, For All of the Dogs is a body of work where pretty much Drake asked and begged all of the biggest rappers in the game at the time, which really, when we look at this, it was Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, and Future, to bow down to him and put the beef away and take that silver medal and work with him on this very record, or I guess not. And now, as while Kendrick and Future did not go anywhere near this album, of course Drake got all of the validation he seemingly needed when at least J. Cole did, and he hopped on the track FPS, where he and Drake upped themselves, pretended to up Kendrick Lamar like they were the big three, but then really made sure that everybody knew that in that big three they were the top two, and that was the whole message and point of the track. And whether Cole intended it to come off this way or not, because honestly I do think in retrospect, while it does seem like Cole was maybe sneak dissing Kendrick a little, the presence of Drake really only pushed these things out more and more and brought it to a point where Cole ended up in the position that he did. Off that very point, Drake framed this song to put Kendrick within that third place spot on the podium and to try and trick everybody into believing that he was the king even above Cole. And in retrospect, of course, that did not pay off, and that did cause Kendrick to show that he is the most competitive rapper ever when he did come back out and respond to all of this. Which, just even when we think about your words having power, and Drake starting this off by saying that they are as big as the Super Bowl, and then Kendrick actually played at the Super Bowl, that just feels very telling to how Drake's arrogance here just ruined everything for him. And then also for Future, which I think a lot of us forget these days, he was dissed on this album too with an entire song named after him in What Would Pluto Do? And if we go back to We Don't Trust You and the second verse on the self-titled intro track, when Future was saying that Drake is a fake friend, a number one fan, and he does not understand why he would do the things he did and everything around that, to what we know, we can find the most info about why Drake messed up and what caused the rift between the two right on this song, where Drake was mocking his friend and seemingly trying to make a joke about how he pretty much ruined their friendship over a woman. And the way that Cupcake tried to just trick everybody with this and make the whole message of the track come off good, and I guess send Future a funny little thing, although it really did come off terrible, was that when trying to justify his actions of being a terrible friend and a weird person, he said that he did the same thing that he thought Future would do, which was just whack. And again, when we look at this entire record, from both the competitive hip-hop stuff with Kendrick to more of the friendship stuff with Future, this was just such an arrogant way to try and justify what you did and to try and step over your competition and peers, however you want to frame it. And honestly, when I just look at For All the Dogs and I see the disses and then see the music, to me, it's almost one of the most disturbing projects that I have ever listened to. And what I really mean by that is that this was Drake operating at his most rotten and delusional. And if he was to diss everybody he dissed here and to try and claim his dominance over the rap game and he dropped something great, we would be having an entirely different conversation. But to drop this level of trash and then to try and step over all of the Hall of Famers that you did, it was just so weird. And honestly, with the record FPS as a whole, getting Cole to bow down and wanting Kendrick and Future to get the message that if they did not want to be featured on this record, he was going to try and end their careers and runs. I mean, this is the textbook definition of just letting somebody feel way too comfortable in a place that they should not be. And when it came to Drake versus Kendrick Lamar, in terms of the sneak disses, everything did go even deeper than FPS. As again, beyond claiming that he was the king of this generation and mocking and making fun of lyrical rap and the type of music that he thought Kendrick Lamar made with a track like 8 AM in Charlotte, Drake started to just step into the whole West Coast and TDE takeover thing that we saw on records like Push Ups and Tailor Made Freestyle during the beef, all the way here, as from getting SZA to feature on 2 songs on this record, that was a move on Drake's end to try and take away and use the voice synonymous with some of Kendrick's biggest hits and with the musical dynasty they both helped build, to just create music with him and now be a part of OVO. And even with the track 7969 Santa, with the choice to get a figurehead and face of the West Coast like Snoop Dogg on this record to do an entire vocal interlude where he was upping Drake and the project as a whole, well, I'm sure as Drake knew he could never get a Dr. Dre to do something like this because of his bond with Kendrick, and he just has way too much self-respect. He got the biggest and most important West Coast figure he possibly could have to narrate on this album, and from things like these to then, even if we go back to the FPS video and Drake was mocking MJ there and trying to act like he could be bigger than the real king of this entire music thing, overall, from trying to take over rap to trying to wipe away and overstep on MJ's name and legacy, this is what I mean when I say this may be the most arrogant piece of anything in the history of any sort of medium of expression ever, because this album really just featured somebody at their worst trying to act like he was the best, not just in terms of their own career or in their little circle, but literally for the figureheads and faces of not just even hip-hop, but all of music. And really, that's just what was so off about this entire album, because with it, when you see what he is saying, but then see a lot of the music, the whole thing does feel like a big trick or a big joke that does not actually hold any sort of weight, just in terms of the titles that Drake was trying to compete for. And so with Drake in this album, that's really the exact issue, and that's why when we look at the legacy of this thing, and especially for all of the stans, you should remember this as being the rock bottom for rap when we were in the worst era of things, and the rock bottom for your guy that ended up ruining his career. Because to then see the reaction that this project caused with Future starting a beef with Drake, Metro jumping in after their issues, and after Drake was a complete, can't say that, but he was really insensitive to him, and then Kendrick also getting into things to just let this beef that was in the making for over a decade finally happen in full. Well, really for hip-hop as a whole, it's surreal to say, but when you see how arrogant and complacent Drake got on this album, all the way to the point where he started mocking the very art form he was supposed to be the face of, and so many of the figureheads of it, I guess what we can say is that without this record and without a track like FPS and what they tried to do here, we may have never gotten like that, or Kendrick going on the greatest run we have ever seen, and most importantly, we would have never seen hip-hop reach its breaking point where it finally just stood up for itself and said, we are not going to let projects like this run things any longer. And so when you realize that everybody got this record, saw how bad it was, and begged for a change, I guess from that perspective, well, for Drake and all the OVO stans who host 2-hour town halls on Kendrick Lamar and try to take him down and are now trying to use my words and narratives to frame it in a weird way, actually, thank you for being you and loving this mid and giving Drake the confidence to drop an album as bad and embarrassing as For All the Dogs, and thinking that he could overtake Kendrick Lamar and MJ for it. Because without this last gross look at the top from Drake, where he really tried to end every single career of his opponents but failed so bad, well, of course, we would have never seen rap change forever and get to the point where we are at today, where despite the fact that you are mad and trying to make everyone on the right side look like the ones who are wrong, well, you are the only ones who are wrong. And at least we do know now that the Drake era and the success that he achieved within it, it's all a figment of the past. And as far as we can see, and with albums and music like we have gotten from Kendrick Lamar, well, really, if you want to try and recreate this era, all you can do is play it and think about your first listen, because when it comes to Drake ever being anywhere near the top or ever even being in the position to try and sneak diss somebody slightly, this is the closest you're going to get to doing it in any sort of a way that is even a quarter respectable. And now with all of this said, let me know, what are your thoughts on me getting dissed by the loser Cupcake Karen Drake stans, and what do you think about how honestly I decided to respond? But just being real, this is the full circle moment of everything that we are seeing to this day, which again, with For All the Dogs, this was the beginning of the end for everything as we knew it. So listen, I just want to say thank you for all your support. It really does help me out. And if you've made it to this point in the video, just make sure to leave a like if you have not already. It really does help me out so much. And what I want to say is that channel memberships are now live. And if you want to help me out more, which I really appreciate, you can do that today. And now if you want to see how before this, Kendrick Lamar just played another show that is making everybody go crazy right now because it was one of the best things we have seen all year in terms of a hip hop performance, you know what to do. Check out the suggested video.